soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still, know you are God.
Welcome to the daily devotional. There is immense power in stillness. Judy Drake, writing in the Christian Herald magazine, tells how a friend of hers called and requested a ride to a community supper. "Is Charlie sick?" June's husband asked. They could see him stretched on a hammock in his backyard. "No, he's not sick," she said. "He's thinking." That seemed like an odd answer, so they quickly changed the subject and drove off to the supper. When they brought their friend back, they went inside. "How's the thinking coming?" they asked. "Wonderful," Charlie said. "Come outside and I'll show you something." Out in the yard, he stretched out his arms. "Look at these stars, will you? When I came out here," Charlie said, "I thought the problem I was struggling with at work was hopeless. But the longer I lay there looking up at all that beauty, the smaller the problem seemed. I got it only partly worked out, but once a problem shrinks down, you know it's licked. Being alone can give us time to wonder and search, to look at the stars on a clear night, to watch the splendor of a sunset, to listen to the waves at the lake, to meditate and reflect. All these point the soul heavenward and remind us of God's order and care and love. We see life God's way. I memorized a poem in grade school by William Henry Davies. We called it the Vagabond poem back then. "What is this life if full of care? We have no time to stand and stare. No time to stand beneath the boughs and stare as long as sheep or cows. No time to see when woods we pass, where squirrels hide their nuts in grass. No time to see in broad daylight streams full of stars like skies at night. No time to turn at beauty's glance and watch her feet how they can dance. No time to wait till her mouth can enrich that smile her eyes began. Oh, poor life this, if full of care, we have no time to stand and stare." There's too much din and clamor in our lives. We need to quiet our hearts before God. He says, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. Being alone with God, being still in His presence, restores our spiritual life and gives God the opportunity to build the soul. God works when we give Him time. He speaks when we listen. Robert Louis Stevenson wrote, "Extreme busyness, whether at school, the market, is a symptom of deficient vitality. It is no good speaking to such folk. They cannot be idle. Their nature is not generous enough." That preaches. Jesus didn't try to prove His worth through a busy schedule. He knew He needed time alone. He had priorities, and He knew how to stick to them. He knew His humanity needed renewal and refreshment. At times, to use a colloquialism, He took the phone off the hook. There's no indication He felt guilty when He sought refuge from the crowds who pressed in around Him. All people need balance in their lives. A time to be with people, a time to be alone. A time to work hard, and a time to relax. When there is no stillness or quiet, there is no time for the soul to grow. The Chinese say, the man who walks through the countryside sees more than the man who runs. They are right. Waiting works. Waiting is giving God our attention. We only live well when we understand the secret of quietness before God. In quietness and confidence shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15. We can wait on God. If there's one thing waiting teaches us, it is that when we wait, we are not in control. When we find ourselves in a waiting room, how do we handle it? We can distrust God. We can defy God. We can turn on God instead of turning to God in times of our greatest distress. That may feel, we may feel at those times, well, God is being unfair. We may say, thanks God, but no thanks. But that gets us nowhere. What gets us somewhere is realizing that God is good even when our circumstances are difficult, and putting our trust in Him. The little seed buried in the stone-cold ground for winter has to wait. Joyce Rupp says in a delightful little book, Little Pieces of Light, the seed has no alarm clock to tell it when it is time to wake up, and no roadmap to say this is the way up. The seed just waits. And so we, in learning to wait, will find God's ways are good. The waiting room is not a place to fear. It's not a place to seek to get out of as quickly as possible. It is a place of discovery where we can discover the treasure of God's promises, His patience, His love, His peace, His transformation, and His friendship. Be still and wait patiently for Him. Psalm 37:7. Not just waiting for it to be over, but knowing He is present in the midst of the challenge of our day. God bless you.